welcome to Canadian Justice. I'm Christine Van Gyn, and today we're discussing the release of the Emergencies Act Inquiry Report, also known as the Rouleau Report, and we're discussing the Canadian Constitution Foundation's legal challenge to the use of the Emergencies Act in federal court. As litigation director for the CCF, I'm not neutral here. I believe that the use of this extraordinary legislation in response to the 2022 Freedom Convoy was illegal, and that the regulations created under it were unconstitutional. That's why we participated as a party in the inquiry and brought a judicial review challenging the use of the law. The factum in that judicial review has now been filed, and the hearing is scheduled for April. Here today to discuss the inquiry report and the federal court case is Sujit Choudhry, the lawyer representing the CCF in that matter, and Ewa Krajewska, the lawyer representing the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, who was also a party in the inquiry. Thank you both so much for joining me. Sujit, we've had a chance now to look over the inquiry report at a very high level. What is your reaction to what the report found?
So the commissioner found that the legal threshold for invoking the Emergencies Act had been met. And quite frankly, it was a disappointing result. We, and Ewa can speak to this as well, we sat through hundreds of hours of testimony. We waded through thousands of pages of evidence. We heard all the witnesses. And I think it's fair to say that on any objective measure, the commissioner should have reached the opposite conclusion, that the requirements for the act weren't met. And in particular, that there was no threat to national security and that existing criminal law enforcement tools hadn't been exhausted. So we weren't, we respect the commissioner's work. We think he worked very hard and he did so in a public spirited way. And but we disagree with the result, unfortunately.
Ewa, same question to you. What is your initial reaction to this 2,000-page report?
I agree with Sujit. I think there is disappointment that based on the evidence, the commissioner found that it was justified to invoke the state of emergencies. Although he doesn't do it with certitude. He does caveat it by saying reasonable people may disagree with me. So it shows you, I think, how difficult it was for him to come to that conclusion. And that a reasonable person looking at all the evidence may find that it was not the right decision for the government to invoke the state of emergencies. So I echo Sujit's comments that it's disappointing, but I think it was a hard conclusion for him to draw based on the evidence. And I agree with Sujit that he and the commission team did an extraordinary job of working very long hours to get this commission done.
I mean, everyone involved, including the two of you, worked extremely long hours, and you both cross-examined the Prime Minister. Sujit, what was that experience like, cross-examining the sitting Prime Minister in this inquiry?
Well, maybe I could answer that question in two ways. The first is, I think it is a testament to the strength of our institutions that a sitting prime minister, and in fact, sitting members of the cabinet, would be cross-examined live on national television in full view of the Canadian public, and that they would be under oath to testify truthfully. And it's quite extraordinary, and it speaks to the foresight of the drafters of the Emergencies Act that they would have entrenched in the statute the requirement for this inquiry, because governments after these emergencies don't have the right incentives to create these inquiries, and it was good that they required this. What he was like, in particular, I would say the following. I think he was very well prepared as a witness. He communicated well, and I think he had a couple of goals. The one was to give evidence in this proceeding, and the other was to communicate to the broader Canadian public. And I think on the second point, I'll let others assess. I think my understanding is that he felt he did well. I think on the evidence he gave to the commission, I think he wasn't as successful. And I think that at least with respect to the issues in which I questioned him,
Right.
and I'd love to hear what Eva has to say, I felt that he made admissions or refused to
Right.
give answers that supported the government's case. And in
Right. We've
particular,
got to go to break,
yeah,
but I'm going to get
sure.
Eva to answer that when she comes back.